first thing I'm going to say is, Renata says for y'all to sign in. And she's had all that good cheesecake her daughter makes and all that out over there. So I guess if you're an appreciative, kind person, you will sign in. Is that pretty good? We'll get this rolling. I guess everyone here is familiar with the restoration of the McKey building downtown. And when it so happened that after all the COVID years, the Heritage Foundation decided to have a dinner, and they're working on promotions to raise money for the Liza Baker Wells Roberts House. And it was suggested that why didn't they ask Daniel Bayman at the event to be held at the Mackey. Daniel Bayman bought the Mackey building along with family investors. I think sure that they really was correct. But he started with good coffee. He needed more room, and so Christ the King Episcopal Church wanted to sell the whole building. So that ended up happening. And the Heritage Foundation, I told them, I said, well, I can give a formal talk on the Mackey and the Mackeys. And part of that is, I know a whole lot about the Mackeys because Susie Mackey Thomas, her thoughts and fingerprints are all over this place, and we know so much because of her, so it was fine to do a tribute to the family doing the building and to Susie. Daniel Bayman came down here about the names of the rooms, and he was saying, would I name them just after old families, whatever. I said, why don't you have fun with the name? So a whole lot of what is brought up in this, whether it's on the Mackeys or the family, are some of the names he gave the rooms down there. And the other evening I did not get upstairs because I was still drawing lines and what I was going to say and not say at dinner. And but people told me that I'd been up there earlier, but they said it's just a wonderful, fantastic addition to our town's heritage and to the continued development of our downtown. So this is a bouncing presentation that goes from the Mackey to the Mackeys, and back to the Mackey, and back to the Mackeys. But it was meant to cover the hotel and appreciate Daniel's efforts and to tell something about the family. And in telling these things, it gives much information on people building and supporting a community. It's been very much a learning experience for us. We think we know some history, and we find out we don't know much. Like somebody said, history grows, and when you start studying something, it does. So I'm going to actually turn off my phone, so I won't know how long I'm talking. But anyway, welcome, and we're glad to have you here at the Lowndes County Historical Society meeting here on May the 18th. The Mackey and the Mackeys. This is actually the name of one of Daniel's rooms. It's 15. Valdosta was early referred to as number 15, being the 15th railroad station on the line from Savannah. And you can see this is from an early Savannah newspaper. Before they knew the names of some towns, I've even seen 15 and a half referred to that I think is Alfred. But people were waiting for the development, they were waiting for the town to start, and then to tell the story of the Mackey and the Mackeys, we have to get the Mackeys to Valdosta also. Valdosta was incorporated on December the 7th, 1860. This is under the 33-star flag, of the United States of America. The Atlantic and Gulf is the rail line that had come from Savannah. If you could see the rail map from just a few years before, it would be everywhere else in Georgia, and we were the stepchildren of the state then too. No rail down here until it reached here in 1860, Thomasville, 1861. As you can see, this is a very remote spot, and but it is where people were coming during the Civil War. This is what they call successor depots. The original depot that was in Valdosta, there's no photograph. This is the 1907 successor depot, Station 15, and it has also been demolished. The first to get here was Major Henry Holliday on your left. He came to Valdosta to purchase property in 1864. Sherman was surrounding Atlanta from the Battle of Atlanta, and they actually wanted people to leave. And their Griffin-Jonesboro area was the final sealing off of the entire city of Atlanta. So he came down here to find a place for his family to escape. When you say people came to Valdosta, so many think they came from Troopville. Well, those were the earliest citizens, but several refugees here during the Civil War with names like the Hollidays and the McKeys, and the Forces, the Barnados, and there are many more that came here as refugees. On the right is Alice Jane McKey Holliday. She is holding the son that became known as Doc Holliday, and she died young. She had tuberculosis also. On the left here we have the son, Doc Holliday, that became known in western lore. On the right is their Holliday cousin Maddie, who was up from where they lived in the Griffin-Jonesboro area. She came here during the Civil War also. Her mother, on her Fitzgerald side, wanted her daughters to have Catholic education. Even though the Civil War was going on, they were sent to Savannah, and the writings say that she and her sister made their way to Valdosta. When she became a nun, she was named Sister Melanie, and she's the one that Doc Holliday kept a wonderful correspondence with for the years. But when she became Sister Melanie, and she lived to be very old, and her cousin on the Fitzgerald side was Margaret Mitchell, and they knew each other. So we like to say that the real Melanie refugee during the Civil War in Valdosta. The real Melanie had gone to win. We do have there is one example here of Doc Holliday doing dental work, because this lady was a guardianship. Her father had died, and it had to be listed in other court dockets that the money was spent. So we do have one example of Doc Holliday actually doing dental work here. We would like to say here that his father, who you just saw, was mayor of Valdosta, and in 1876 he is recorded as introducing the pecan tree here. He was very much into horticulture and did very much in that area for our area. More Mackeys. This is on T.S. Mackey, who was the county commissioner when they built our courthouses being restored. He was brother to Alice Jane Mackey and his wife. They were off in the Civil War, but their wives and their children came to Valdosta and spent the time during the Civil War, and then they came here and basically became leading citizens. He was he's the county commissioner. He's the chairman that built our 1905 historic courthouse, T.S. Mackey. This group of people grew up in an exceptional time. This house is just down the street from the McKey building. It is 301 East Central. It's now part of Unity Park. And what we run into with them, this is a very interesting photograph from about 1905. It keeps just jumping back at us through the years about various subjects around here. This happens to be Earl S. Mackey, the first, I guess, the senior. And then this is Lillian Mackey. This is a man named C.F. Clark, who, when we get to the Mackey building, and the main beginning store was the A. Converse Company, and he was a principal in the A. Converse Company. This house was in the neighborhood about a block away, 301 East Central, now Unity Park, the J. and Ricken home. The photo is circa 1905. We find it here, Earl Mackey and his sister Lillian, their father deceased. They were part of the Orange Grove ownership and thus part of the actual builders of the Mackey building. This is the J. N. Griffin house, and it was built in 1899. Their photo is in the library of that house. This group of people grew up in an exceptional time in the development of Valdosta. Most born near 1880. They saw an exceptional transformation of the town. There is too much to tell, and it would take several separate programs to cover the development of the town. This is just as an example. As the 1905 courthouse was being finished, construction workers began completing the West Central Avenue 1905 Valdosta High School, shown here with the Valdosta Institute from 1885 in the background. Then as soon as the courthouse was finished, they finished the 1905 Valdosta High School. Then they had the 1906 Mackey building. Building like this was going on all over town. It was just an exceptional time. They could spend every day in wonderment almost at what was going on. But we do jump ahead right here, just for a bit of descriptions in 1908. And we were putting a lot of things in here about the building history for Daniel Bayman, because he was so keenly interested in it. The Mackey had a serious fire. The second story fire in this room was noticed from a pedestrian-headed home about 11:15 that night. He rushed down Patterson Street to pull number 14 fire alarm. When the newly modernized fire department arrived, they broke out a window in this room. If I say in this room, the room when they were having this banquet in a couple of weeks ago, we were actually in the room. They broke out the window to get in. So you're getting this as if you're in that room. Before Massingen would have entered the upper floors, the Valdosta Times article referred to the new Mackey as Valdosta's handsomest building. The man named as reporting the fire and thus saving the potential devastation was named Arthur Davis. And then of all things, we discovered about a week ago now, about 3 weeks ago, that Arthur Davis is in this photograph. And so the people gathering a year or two before, not only did they build the building, but one of them saved the building. And this photograph keeps presenting Valdosta stories. This lady, Emma Griffin, lower right, they were in her parents' house, would become the first lady of Georgia when her husband, Lamartine Hardman, was elected governor. They married in 1907. Of these various people, two had ownership of the Mackey. All would have watched it being constructed and surely celebrated the opening. So perhaps we begin here tonight with a riddle. Should we welcome them to this function? Or in a manner, are they welcoming us? They were recommended us. This is from the historic driving tour. Quick and concise. The McKey building, built in 1906 by T.S. McKey, Mrs. W.H. McKey and her 4 children, with profits from an orange grove. This Italian Renaissance style building is now home to Christ the King Episcopal Church and a non-profit eatery. This is the A Converse. This was the chief building downstairs. It was the retail business. I somehow thought including this ad was nice because it's actually talking about big and tall. This keeps jumping on me. This is Albert Converse Jr. And this particular drawing is from his coverage in the book called Men of Mark in Georgia. But we read one thing about the Converse Company because that was what set off the beginning of the McKey building downstairs, not the offices upstairs. And then there will not be so much to tell on these various slides. A. Converse and Son was one of Valdosta's earliest mercantile establishments, being conducted first by A. Converse Sr., then by his sons Tom, he's the Converse Dalton Farrell House, Will Converse Hall at PSU, and Albert Jr. After a time, Tom and Will withdrew, and Albert organized A. Converse Company, having Charles Clark, who was in the photograph, with him. These men contributed much to the growth of Valdosta. After their deaths, the business was bought by Earl S. McKey, who retired after a few years, while Messrs. Jim and Cleve Hunt continued to conduct the business. The Valdosta Times wrote of the April 1906 opening of A. Converse Company. The firm's stand or place in the McKey building is one of the handsomest stores in the state and would be creditable to a town 5 times the size of Valdosta. And we brought up those Hunts because they do use Gypsy's Last Parade is the name of one of their rooms. And these Hunts we just mentioned, a scrapbook they kept, a photo album, are the only pictures that exist of the circuses that used to winter here and Gypsy the Elephant. We did point out to Daniel Bayman that evening. This is Patterson Street. This is 1902, before these buildings were constructed and the McKey was built there. It's also before the courthouse was built. So you're actually looking at, I think, Philip Williams, aren't you back there? I think you're the one that had to tell me what this was. Years ago, I said, well, what in the world is this? That's the Converse building. But anyway, this is Patterson Street, very early, a very early photograph. This is the Albert Converse home. We just put this in there. It's a pretty postcard showing First Methodist Church. And then the dome of the courthouse way to the left, 1905, the McKey building, 1906. The Albert Converse house was early 1900s. And now, who knows what this is? This is the parking lot between Covington's and 306 North. Yes, Valdosta. And Stanley Cox told me last week that he wants a photograph of that because he's going to have it painted and put it in 306 North. Said that would be good. All right, here we go with the development of different things in Valdosta that jumped from the McKey to the McKeys. Yes, Valdosta did have a blue book, a social register in 1908 and 9. The McKeys are included. Some of the McKeys were included in this, or they chose to participate. I think you paid 75 cents to have your name listed. But anyway, on the same page were the McRees from Kinderloo and Mary McRee. Are you still back there?
Yeah.
Oh, over there. So Mary McRee, we've got some Kinderloo royalty here. And since Albert Converse was listed downstairs, the Converse family was well represented in the social register of Valdosta also. You see Albert Converse, A. Converse, and that's his daughter Ruth right there under it. There are not many ads in the McKey, in the social register, but we did point out to Daniel Bayman that because of this ad, the McKey building itself named the Valdosta Social. In 1912, there was a lot of anxiety and worry and hope in the A. Converse building as Albert Converse's daughter Ruth, and we had to get Earl Mackey to pick her out, I think there, was on this grand tour. And what we can say about this is this trip was of keen interest in the Mackey building, as Ruth Converse, the daughter of Albert Converse, was on this grand tour. The tour would go from Gibraltar to Moscow, and from the Aswan on the Nile to above the Arctic Circle in Sweden, there to see the midnight sun for the 4th of July. Y'all hear that? The story has much intrigue. When the tour group headed toward Europe, they were on the Atlantic the night the Titanic sunk. The Historical Museum Archives is fortunate to have over 500 postcard images of this trip, and also a participant's map and diary. And there they are. And there's Ruth Converse. The Mackeys are listed on the charter petition list of the Valdosta Country Club. All there are charter members on the list that had offices in the Mackey building. This is a painting that is, there's a copy of this in the museum, but it's a painting of the very earliest Valdosta Country Club. And as far as we know, there are not other images of it this small before additions were made. God. All right. This photo is of the Valdosta golf team, 1921-22. They really like competing against Glenarm and Thomasville. Second from the right is Winston C. Mackey. He was a dentist that soon became an insurance executive. His office here in the Mackey building. We think Winston Mackey figured out that you can sell insurance while golfing, but you cannot fill a tooth while putting. This is back to the Mackey's participation in that. This is Clyde Mackey, and they do have a room named the Liberty Parade, and are able to feature this photograph and some other things on Clyde Mackey. Clyde Mackey was serving as Joan of Arc, and if you can, in this national drives and other places would each town would have their own fundraisers, and that is First Baptist Church in the background, and that is Tomb Street, when you can see part of it paved, and then it just goes to the it's like hard gravel. People in town find it very different when, for various reasons, this photograph comes out. Mainly comes out during World War I. But Clyde Mackey White was born, that was her later name, she was born in 1900, and was actually the last firstborn full cousin to Doc Holliday on her Mackey's. Well, how about this? How about this? We discovered studying the Mackey, that in the 1917, 18, and 1921 city directories after Dr. Frank Bird got back from World War I, that his offices were in the McKey building. And he later would come down here and build this building we're in today. And I told Beth Deloach Meeks, and I would bring this up, that Dr. Bird built this hospital soon enough in the 20s for Beth's father to be born in this building. So, and he came here when Beth brought him down here. We got his photograph down there on the staircase as someone born in the Bird Hospital. Well, what else did we find out? We told Daniel Bailey we thought he was trying to load the boat, because it ends up that the lady that Dr. Frank Bird married, Laura Ashley, she had also been on the Grand Tour trip. So Central Avenue has its stories. This is just an actual newspaper that's in the museum. We actually have this newspaper, and it had such a nice ad from the A Converse company that we put it in here, special fair edition, and you can see that up at the top they do call themselves Valdosta's oldest and grandest clothing store. And this is just the photograph of the building taken separately out of the ad. But that's pretty good for 1921 news. This is just a photo that has been appreciated over the years. It is Julian Mackey Jr.'s 8th birthday at present. When you blow this up, you really see that the hats the children have on are all very patriotic. Also in the 1921 city directory, it lists that the Valdosta Street Railway office was in the Mackey building. By 1921, the trolley was waning somewhat, and as the individual passenger car was taking over, but the Mackey building did hold the office of the street railway system at one time. One person in town has told me that they remembered riding the trolley in Valdosta. Now, it quit operating in 1925, some say December 24, some say 25. And it was Susie Mackey Thomas, Susan Converse Mackey Thomas. And I said, Susie, you were only 5 years old when it quit operating. Then she explained. She said that she lived over on West Hill Avenue before urban renewal years later. And her grandmother lived up on North Patterson. And she said she took the trolley to see her grandmother so many times that she explicitly remembers taking it. All right, 1922, women's suffrage had occurred a couple of years before. And here we go with the Mackeys again. Marie Mackey Tillman was one of the first women, well, she and Miss Peoples were the first women to hold elective office in Valdosta and Lowndes County. And we will say that this gentleman had an office in the Mackey building. It was called Darty and Mackey Lumber, and I've been told that they were actual did international business from their offices out of the Mackey building. To give that perspective to 1922, they were elected in early 1922. In the fall of 1922 was the opening of the William Street Valdosta. This is Marie Mackey Tillman. Others in her family followed in her vein. Her work was a true gift to Lowndes County history. This is the book that the DAR produced, In 1941, she was the chief editor, author, the one that made it happen. She wouldn't take credit, but everybody that knew says, don't let people forget. And but anyway, it's an exceptional book. We're so glad to have it. This particular one, inside the flap, says Tom Shelton, 1945. And what we would like to say, and Floyd Luke is here, and it's her DAR that sells this book. Didn't you tell me y'all have about 12 copies of the last reprint left? Yes. So she'd be glad for y'all to buy some of those that are left. But you might, it's a very valuable and worthy issue. Okay, Wilburn Hampton Mackey was Valdosta mayor in 1926 to 1930. The city hall during his tenure was built in 1895. And this is the building that was referred to as the ornament of the city. And we put this in here because they decided to name one of the rooms in the McKey Hotel the ornament, using local history that this building was called the ornament of the city. One of the chief campaigns during Mr. Mackey's tenure as mayor was the vaccination of canines. And here they are in an early photograph of some prominent men of Valdosta showing that they had vaccinated dogs. And I didn't want to put Daniel Bayman on the spot, and I said, is the Mackey a pet-friendly hotel? He said, well, he said, service dogs can come in. I said, well, I'll just say vaccinated service dogs can get in. This is one we haven't completed, but this was early Mackey siblings and cousin from Valdosta that became medical doctors who began their studies in the pre-World War II period of Emory at Valdosta. Earl Mackey Jr., John Darty Mackey, and Robert Wilburn Mackey, who they called Whitney. Soon after A-Converse no longer was functioning in business, we run into Churchwell's department store, which is something almost unknown to most of us in town. This ad is they call themselves the College Girls Headquarters, all that stylish. They were a small chain in South Georgia, in Albany, Americus, Dublin, Valdosta, and Waycross. We were finding out more, and I was shocked the other evening. A lady came up and said, oh, I remember Churchwell, and I thought, well, I'm not going to ask you your age. But anyway, it was very, very glad to make the contact. In 1932, Mackey wives and daughters were charter members of the Mystery Ball Club. And from the 1935 image it left, we have Clyde Mackey White without her horse. And she's in center, and then also here, upper left, at the 10-year anniversary of various costumes. Later in the 30s, a very big surprise came to Valdosta, Georgia. Susie Mackey Thomas entered a contest, a national contest, to name a very favorite operator on a radio show. And we'll read a bit of this. Eddie Cantor's talkative operator now has a suitable label. Her new moniker is Seymour, and it was submitted by Susie Mackey, 16, of Valdosta, Georgia. Susie's reasons for selection of such a name was clear and to the point. Said Susie, I think Helen Troy should be called Seymour because she does. As winner of the Eddie Cantor's contest for the name, Susie got a free trip to Hollywood as Eddie Cantor's personal guest. Prize-winning tag was selected from 275,000 entries. by judges Walt Disney, Rupert Hughes, Gracie Allen, and George Burns. Pretty good group of folks, isn't it? And anyway, that is Susie's brother, Wibby, who the family says he would have loved being an actor, but he ended up being a medical doctor. But this was something that was very exciting then, and they have named one of the rooms after Seymour. Here's Seymour in 1937, Susie Mackey in Hollywood, with cosmetics being applied by Max Factor himself. Among his most notable clients were Jean Harlow, Betty Davis, Rose Swanson, Mary Pickford, Joan Crawford, Lucille Ball, Judy Garland, and as a result, almost all the actresses were his regular customers. He died in 1938. In fact, to make sure the Mackey building was getting coverage, it's hard to search. There's not much easy history some of these years when there's only 5 city directories in 20 years, but you look and work and find. But in 1940, in the Valdosta City Directory, Churchwell's department store is still on the bottom. 6 attorneys, an optometrist, medical doctors, real estate, insurance, various, financial, personal and auto, a social security board had an office, and an entity of Southern Bell Telephone and Telegraph. But you can see Mackey Insurance had 3 suites within the building. This was a photograph and story we were very fortunate to come by. James Edward Alexander, who is an author, and I think he's 88 himself. And we talked a good bit, and we're telling him all about the Mackey building and it being redeveloped. And he said, "Oh, let me get started." And he had studied a section of the Valdosta City Directory in 1940 and come across this lady as an elevator attendant in the Mackey building. He said that he chased down her daughter, who was 88, living in Tacoma, Washington. And I said, "Find us a photograph." So he finally got the lady's daughter, and she says there's a wedding photo, but you know where it is. Her daughter will have to find it. But anyway, we were very pleased that he could find people from the working element within the Mackey building. Then he also told us the story of that he would bread shrimp for a man named Sykes, and he had this restaurant that and they would make the bread. They didn't just bread the shrimp; they had to make it the breading from toast. And we started learning. We knew nothing of this restaurant being in the Mackey building, and we read just one bit about them. He eventually opened an aviation cadet club. Is open in the city on Saturday evenings. What a delightful place the aviation cadets at Moody Field have now. That Paul's Kitchenette on Saturday night. Paul Sykes, owner and operator of Paul's Kitchenette, quickly saw the need of a place for these boys to have dinner and dance with their wives and dates. He had several brothers in the service, and a Mrs. Converse in town, who was on a military committee, approached him about the matter of opening. Well, what we learned from this, when we found out it was Paul Sykes, not just the Sykes, and so his restaurant in the Mackey would have closed when Moody Field closed. They weren't here. But when Moody reopened in 1951, Paul Sykes opened the S&K restaurant. So the S&K restaurant, via Paul Sykes, and I think one of his nieces is here. Are you back there, June? Yes. Came the essence of Paul Sykes restaurants and serving all the good fried food came out of his beginning restaurant in the Mackey. And the S&K was soon given the name Sit and Kiss by the Younger Crowd. And the name of the honeymoon suite in Daniel Bayman's McKey Hotel is Sit and Kiss. So they really have taken local history and put it into the Mackey building. Now, learning that the cadets were meeting in the Mackey building in the 43-5, 43, 44, 45, it put them into the arena of the Moody Brides. And we have had to explain it, even to one person that's in this room, that they said, well, what did you mean talking about the Moody Brides? I said, oh my goodness. I said, we're not talking about someone's attitude. I said, we're talking about that the guys from town were marrying the airmen from Moody. And also, who is one of our Moody Brides, but Susie Mackey Thomas. And she used to tell us about when she worked at Moody, outside of her window was part of the German prisoner of war compound. And she said it was fun. It was very funny because one of the German prisoners of war would go around whistling the popular song then, "Don't Fence Me In." But we also really, sometimes Santa Claus comes to the museum, and this rare original Moody field patch happened to be in a scrapbook that was turned in several years ago from that a family turned in, and their mother had been a Moody bride. Okay. Since Susie's two sons were there the other evening, we stuck this in there to introduce them. And but there's Lynn, who's here today, and Bud on one of their trips out to Tombstone, Arizona. And this is these are all people that have been to the museum. That's the author Victoria Wilcox. Her husband, he's also a dentist there in Griffin, a Peachtree City. And then this is Dr. Richard Thomas, a dentist from Crestview, Florida. And he's been in the museum. In fact, he wants to one day do an exhibit here. But when the Earp family finally was selling some of Doc Holliday's effects, he was outbidding everyone, the city of Griffin. He outbid everybody on everything. So he's the one with the stuff. But they've all been to the museum here, and we got Susie's sons in there. Okay, things move on to the Mackey building, and one of the probably one of the largest renovations through the years, until some of the things Christ the King and Daniel Bayman had done, was Luke Brothers renovations of the building. And it opened in 1946, and they modernized the structure. Will house expanded businesses. Contracts awarded to J. and Bray. I think it's not in there. I think the architect of the redesign was Felton Davis. What we are showing here, because of Luke Brothers, Daniel Bayman was looking for, he said it looked like in one old postcard, there was a little dot or something. It looked like a neon sign on the edge of the building. So at the museum, these neon signs did exist on the corner of the building, and this first function for this was 2 weeks ago, and I think 2 days before it, because Daniel could produce these photographs, that he was able to get voted to be allowed to put a neon sign on the corner of the building. You can see it way in the distance here. The other one's script. This one's a little different. And I think this one just stayed in there because people like the talk. But anyway, Michael Luke, you have helped, your family has helped this man out by, in Florsheim shoes, by having put signs on the corner of the building. These are also these articles about the Luke Brothers store opening in September of 1946. And I do believe I have read where this was the first air-conditioned building downtown. Does that sound right, Michael? Yes. Okay, we've got confirmation from the family. Then they enter another era for a while downtown. It was the era of Rexall drugs at the McKey. I finally figured out that Rexall has an R and an X for prescription and all. You can still learn things in there. This is the Liggett Rexall drugs, which Liggett is the man that founded. We're very thankful that everybody had parades. This is out of a 1966 Valdosta State pine cone, and is the Alpha Delta Pi sorority float. After that, for over more than a decade, Lyle's Drug, Belle Isle, had moved down there, and was there until 1984. And I talked to his son Malcolm, who's not sent the pictures yet, but he's the most reliable person getting them, so he is intimidated with this photo. And his son Malcolm Lyles is the homecoming king at Valdosta High. Queen Carol Blaylock Woodall, but they're about 2 blocks north of the McKey building. And maybe by the time they get to the McKey building, Malcolm will send us some interior photos. Now we jump to McKey Park. McKey Park was a gift of land from the estate of Wilbur Hampton McKey. This is 1956. He's the former mayor. The park naming was to honor the full family. The park is highly used, and its specific establishment is well documented in articles at the museum. But in the 2020s are here, and we have a pickleball club. And it was directed to Daniel Bayman. Daniel, until you devise and plan your rooftop downtown Valdosta pickleball court here at the McKey, let your guests know that all they need to do is maneuver over to Patterson Street, head north, and when they get to 2 Mile Branch, take a left to the McKey Park, and they will have pickleball courts. We also, if you head north of, this is a nice sign that in 2022 that the United States Tennis Association awarded the Harry B. Anderson Tennis Facility at McKey Park. If you head on up to the traffic light north of the Valdosta Middle School and turn left, once you get to Eagle Road, the properties there in the neighborhood south of Eagle Road were early McKey properties, with one section named McKey Plantation, and this is the area that still puts on the Christmas luminary at McKey Plantation. But what do we have to say about the property? McKey family properties included a farm. In property divisions, Julian D. McKey received the farm. This is him on a form of Alice Chalmers tractor. He had lots of businesses. He actually was very successful in the things he did, but the family always spoke with a form of regret and sorrow for him. Poor cousin Julian, he got the farm, and everyone else got the property in a growing city. And so there was always lament for poor cousin Julian who got the farm. Well, at one point in time, all these surveyors showed up on Julian's property. What is going on? What became of Julian's farm? It became exit 18 of I-75. Poor cousin Julian. Anyway, now back to the McKey building. And in the Lowndes County Q Public Property Search for the McKey building, J.D. McKey, poor cousin Julian, had evidently died about 1975, and he had become, in all observation, the sole owner of the Mackey building, and it shows going to his daughter, his only child that survived to reach adulthood, Elise Mackey Whitaker, in 1976. So now it looks like cousin Julian managed to get him some city property after all. Community art for community celebrations. Left the Lowndes County, 1825 to 1975, side of the Cohen art drawn and gifted by Earl Mackey. Earl Sinclair Thayer Mackey III drew and gifted the celebration efforts of his Lowndes County sesquicentennial art, which featured the courthouse at the center, pine needle bough on one side and azaleas on the other. It was drawn to be used on the Lowndes County side of the commemorative coin, this being the Lowndes sesquicentennial and the nation's bicentennial were just 1 year apart, if that. It was drawn to be used on the Lowndes side of the coin and the other side commemorating the bicentennial of the United States. It was then adapted for other uses, such as the cover of the pictorial history of Lowndes County for the sesquicentennial. Do let this explanation of Earl's artwork serve notice to us that Lowndes' 200-year bicentennial is in late 2025, and our nation's 250 years is 2026. I see you back there, Ginger, but your husband, Sheriff Ashley Falk, has reminded me that in this mix, the Lowndes County Sheriff's Department recognizes its 200th year in 2026. So I hope our good sheriff plans something special for that recognition and enjoys it. I interject here that Earl Mackey is here. We're speaking from the other night, and that he is the only one in town that still carries the Mackey surname. And to Earl's surprise, everyone there stood up and applauded his efforts of art, and maybe that he was the one Mackey still in town. But Earl's art, later public design concepts from the aspects of the original, provided attractive county scenes. So his beginning art from 1975 is long served, and it's probably just about unknown that was done. Okay, the Mackeys and the Mackey, Titletown, USA, and titles. Even last night, even someone called me and said, "Okay, the rain delay's over, and turn the radio back on." But anyway, even last night, the Lowndes High baseball brought another state title to our town. But over the years, hundreds of men and women have brought titles to Valdosta. This particular one is Bill Malone's art of the 1986 state championship, 1986 national championship of the Valdosta Wildcats. And here we speak of Daniel Mackey Tillman. Dan Tillman has proven himself an asset to the Wildcat team only in his second year. Although possessing a unique soccer-style kick, he connected on 55 point-after-touchdown attempts and 8 field goals for a total of 79 points. In the Wildcats' victory over Fulton High School, he set a school record, 3 field goals in a single game. And he told me that he was at Valwood and all they had was soccer, and he told his father he wanted to play football. And so he went, and he was the first soccer-style kicker in Lowndes County. Okay, here we jump from Titletown to titles. From 1986 to about 1994-5, the license plate office was in the bottom of the map. Any of y'all remember going there to get that? we could not, in the amount of time to search, we could not hit on a photograph on the McKey when it was the tag office. But we ran into these interesting photographs of the tag and title office. All right, in here, when you get to in here, you finally are inside the office. So you can see what was going on at the early tag and title offices. And if you weren't in the office, you could be in the lobby. And if you weren't in the lobby, you could be in the line that went outside. And there's the McKey building. And we quizzed Daniel because his Good Coffee website says he first started in a rolling wooden cart to sell his coffee. And we suggested that he could have cleaned house this day selling coffee from his wooden cart. And he smiled and nodded and agreed. But within this realm of the tag and title office, we always try to find something that maybe ties to his building that he can use down the road. And we were hoping to find maybe a commemorative car tag or something that would have been sold in the McKey building, and we found one. We ran into the Atlanta Centennial Olympics, 1996, the Centennial Olympic Games, and I saw about 24 tags that had stickers that went all the way up to 1996 on the right, and then I finally saw a clean tag and it said 93, Eureka. So we were able to present to Daniel that this is something else he can say has gone on in the history of this building. This was one we hoped that Mike would work when we started, but this started, I think, in 1996. We were like this because the lady that drew the art for this tag was a Lowndes County resident, but it didn't quite fit, but in a manner it does, because just outside the windows of the McKey is US 84 Central Avenue, the Wiregrass, Georgia Parkway, and so therefore they can tell all these stories of our fabulous ecosystem, etc., that they so choose. And while they're redoing the courthouse and getting some things downtown, they probably ought to find somewhere to put one of these signs downtown. Tourists like to know what Wiregrass is. Also, this was just out of an early newspaper where they were terming Valdosta Queen City of the Wiregrass. Okay, the McKeys and the McKey. Law and order. And Daniel had told me that that 2 sitting judges had actually had offices in there, and we were dealing with such early history with things. And I said, that's a great name to use, and especially since law office has already been in there. And back to the McKey side of it, Lamar Tillman, a McKey descendant, I think he's out of this Marie McKey Tillman, what's called the historical wonders in town. Began his law practice in 1937 and practiced until 1989. The continuation of this firm is now Coleman Talley LLP, and you can see a lot of familiar names that were in this. This is from the 1988 City Directory, and it says Mr. Tillman practiced till 1989. So this would be who was involved with the law firm at the time he retired. Now back to the McKey, the sitting judges that have held offices in the McKey building are James G. Tunison and Kelly Turner. And then also, perhaps the most recent long-term occupant of the McKey building as an attorney is Converse Bright. In the McKey building, Converse Bright awarded and recognized with several legal national recognitions. But this doesn't involve Converse, this is in general. We were talking to Daniel Bayman and the people the other evening, and we said, beware of the sweet name Law and Order. because since it mentions lawyers, it rents at a higher rate. So, does that sound about right? That's just fun. And the McKeys and the McKey, church chimes in a church house. The first Christian church here at 1902, 2 postcards. Over the years, the McKey family has generally adhered to membership in First Christian Church. This was where where Bank of the Ozarks drive-through is now, sideways to Doherty's service station. But one thing this church is known for in 1902, the neighbor, the Lowndes Hotel across the street to the side, was built in 1902. And late in 1902, about the biggest show there was during the rampage of Gypsy the Elephant was in between the First Christian Church and the Lowndes Hotel. And they did name the room Gypsy's Last Parade to make the name calmer. But the writing, poor elephant, that's right. But the writings talk about the people trying to subdue her were calling to her out of the windows of this sanctuary. Then they moved out in 1956, the First Christian Church, to North Patterson Street. And on the front, this is to the front right, but between the front left and the front right, there are 2 plaques. And of the 6 names, 5 of them are either named Mackey or a Mackey descendant. So they've had a lot of involvement with First Christian Church. And this particular plaque is for providing the spire that holds the Caribbean, the chime, that so many of us here, if you've ever been called it, that stopped at that line. But it's very pleasant. And then after the chime, we say the Mackeys to the Mackey. Back at the Mackey is a church house, Christ the King Episcopal Church. And it was located in the Mackey from 2002 to 2021. It also contained Hildegard's, their parish hall, a nonprofit restaurant. Hildegard's was always sponsoring events and did give a vibrancy to downtown activity that was noticed and appreciated by the downtown community. Here's the Mackey building. You can note that the Christ the King banner is still on the building. This was the removal of some entablature and some cornice. That is with one piece left to replace. We have just been sent lots of photographs of this. This is the Mackey building during the repairs with no cornice. And probably after the activity of the loops on the building, this is probably the next most substantial rehabilitation of the building, and along with what Daniel Bayman has done. Well, in looking, we didn't know what we would come up with around here. We actually came up with another ornament. And we know we've got Seymour, and the early city hall being the ornament of the city, we don't know if we've got ornament or not. But it so happens that the Valdosta Downtown Main Street office, it sponsors one of these every year. In 2004, did the Mackey building as Christ the King Episcopal Church. And we did announce the other evening that our archive inventory of this ornament says 3, and we told them do not even ask. Because you break one and then you're down to 2. So anyway, we're glad to have this. And so the building, the Mackey and the Mackeys, it's gone from now to Good Coffee that Daniel Bayman opened over there, and they used the 133 North Patterson Street address. And then the McKey Boutique Hotel upstairs, and people say, you really need to go up there and look. And we did not know until 2 days before this presentation, he put the numbers up that he was going to call the upstairs 101 East Central Avenue. And through the years, people have used things between 103 and 107. So this is minutia, but he may be the first one, so we wanted to make sure we got it in there. And here we are. What do you do in a day? This happens to be Albert Pendleton the first. He became Albert Pendleton Sr. And here we are back to Winston Mackey, our dentist turned insurance executive. Well, he also learned here that you can sell insurance while you're baiting a hook, but you cannot fill a tooth while you're baiting a hook. So he kept his practice working very well through the years concerning this. How much, how large? The writings on this say that this was just a small amount of what they caught that. But what we want to say is that as we close, in the 3031 City Directory, Winston Mackey's office is listed as number 27, the Mackey Building. But in all the busyness of a day, let it be noted this evening, and for goodwill, that on March the 25th, 1931, that a Mackey left the Mackey and went fishing with a friend. So we will rest the story of the Mackey and the Mackey. And y'all be glad that's the short version of it. I would like to say that Lynn Thomas, since he is a Mackey, he's written his mother, one of mine's mother in Albert Pendleton, he asked me to step him over. Do you want to say anything about him, or be just announced?
I'll just mention this. For those of you who might be interested in the subject matter, my mother and Albert Pendleton wrote this book a long time ago, but it's been updated since then. If you would like to know more about the Holliday family, with Doc Holliday, they have copies of this for sale. All the proceeds go to the museum. And in a moment of madness, I wrote this a few years back because I was a baseball fanatic. It's about guys who played here in the minor leagues. Some of you may have gone to games like I did when you were young. And all these guys eventually played in the major league or were coming down in the major league. So I concentrated on those between the period 1939 through 1958 who played in the major leagues for whatever reason. Well, most of them because they deserve it. But anyway, I have copies of these for sale over there. Again, all the proceeds go to the museum. So if you're interested, stop by and see whoever's over there at the moment. They can fix you up. Anyway, thank you.
My goodness. John, would you like to go?
Thank you, Don. Great program. We've got several more coming up. I don't know. We'll try to give you of what's next, but that was fun.
There might be, well, it's been very interesting to chase, and Daniel Bayman has gone through a tremendous amount of effort. So these are some things they didn't even get mentioned are the names of rooms, but it's. But I will say this: they had not fully a soft opening, but when they had that first Blues Berry Festival here, some people were invited to. I've heard different names, but I would say some people were invited to lodge there for an evening. And so he took Mayor Scott James Matheson heard the mayor on his radio show the next morning. He said, they put me in a room called Say More about some woman that won a contest. And I texted, you know, she talked so, the mayor talked so much, I texted Daniel Heyman and I said, how appropriate to have put the mayor in Say More, Say More.
Thank you, Doc.
I'm not sure. If y'all heard any representatives say